Very suspenseful, isn't it? Keeps you on your edge of your seat the whole time. Like, ooh, even though you know what's going to happen, they get to you.
It's still good.
Yeah, for sure. All righty. Bell ringer coming up. Ooh. Describe Operation Valkyrie and the failed attempt to assassinate Hitler. Here we go. How's that vanilla Coke?
Delicious.
Is it?
You say it so
I wanted to try to have it cold, but oh well. I made sure I kept it in my car so I didn't forget it. I was sitting there last night after my bike ride. It's like, ooh, do I drink it? What's that? Yeah, 9 miles yesterday. Huffy. It's a hybrid mountain bike / road bike.
You can drive that like on the road stuff?
Yeah, that's why I usually just ride on the road. I just stinks around my house. It's really hilly. You're always going up. But get good workout in. These quads here.
That's cool.
They're going to call me Quadzilla soon.
I should write that one down.
Quadzilla. I'm the quad father.
That's your best one.
Oh, it hurts.
I like it.
Green Day.
2 second favorite song ever.
Favorite song, 21 Guns.
Third.
Their favorite one, American Idiot.
Fourth.
To me, how you have
Rockin' Around.
lined up.
Fifth.
Is the only song I really listen to much. I don't really
Favorite album?
Green Day, but
What about Jesus of Suburbia?
Yeah, he likes that one.
That's a great one. Just got to listen to the clean version of it, though.
Oh yeah, why not?
Yeah. Why wouldn't there be? What song have you ever heard there isn't a clean version for it? Yeah, check out Jesus of Suburbia. It's pretty good. Jesus of Suburbia. All right, Operation Valkyrie. What do we got? What do we have here, Griffin?
that's a German official came in to a high-ranking German meeting with a bomb in a briefcase and then exploded, causing 3 German officers to die, but Hitler survived, and then roughly 5,000 people executed.
All right, good job. So Stauffenberg, he was a respected general. Okay, well, high-ranking official anyway, and he was in Northern Africa, duking it out against the Allied powers, and he was injured, and he kind of stepped up the ladder, and he was very patriotic towards Germany. Right, he was very a strong nationalist of Germany, but towards the end of the war, he was kind of leaning against Hitler's control and his leadership, as he was witnessing what was going on, obviously, with the Holocaust and some of these death camps and these concentration camps, and he started losing support for Hitler. But at the same time, he loved Germany. He wanted to make sure that the German country wouldn't falter any longer, anymore, moving on with this war. So he wanted to try to initiate Operation Valkyrie, which was really just the German reserve army taking control if anything were to happen to the Nazi leadership, okay, during the time of Hitler's rule, his regime. So if something would happen, if he would get killed, Operation Valkyrie would be in effect, and they would round up a lot of these Nazis and Nazi supporters, the SS, you name it, and kind of push them out of their control or their leadership. And the only way to do that was to try to assassinate Hitler. Okay, kill off many of the leadership that supported Hitler. So Himmler, that would have been a great target as well, but he wasn't at this meeting. Right? He wasn't at this meeting at the Wolf's Lair in Poland. Okay, so he armed an explosive in a briefcase. Supposed to be two of them, but he only got one of them armed. And as he was walking in, he placed the briefcase in. And in the movie, it describes a little bit more in detail of how some of the German soldiers, or some of the people there, were kind of moving his briefcase towards the end of this table. We know it's an oak table. They designed it to be in an underground bunker. So if the explosion would have happened, it probably would have killed everybody in that room. But because of the heat, they decided to have it outside, in a room that had windows so that they could feel some sort of breeze because it was really hot. So when this explosion happened, there were some people killed in this explosion, but Hitler survived. And on his way back to Berlin, he thought it was a success. He tried to initiate Valkyrie, even if he thought that Hitler died, but it came out that he didn't die. But he was trying to push for this operation, even though he didn't really know the results of what happened, if Hitler died or not. So once he landed, there was kind of confusion amongst the reserved army in Germany because they couldn't believe that he was dead. They couldn't believe the leader for so long here in Germany, died in this assassination attempt. So with that being said, Hitler calls up to Berlin and explains that he's still alive. And many of these people that were involved in this assassination attempt were killed. Stauffenberg, before he died, he yelled at that he was supportive of Germany and wanted a long-lived German country, the country after this war. Even through Hitler's leadership, he wanted to make sure that his nationalism for Germany was expressed. Okay, he just didn't really agree with Hitler's leadership anymore. All right, so that's Operation Valkyrie. That was one of the most famous assassination attempts on Hitler's life, and there's many of them, but that was probably the most significant, impactful, because it was pretty close. Right, it almost happened, and if it would have happened, the war probably would have ended pretty early. Right, probably would have ended in 1944 when this attempt happened, and who knows what world we'd be in right now. I don't know, not sure. Maybe the Cold War wouldn't have been as impactful, right? Maybe the conflicts with the Soviet Union wouldn't have been so significant in Europe. Not sure. No one really knows. All right, so that's Operation Valkyrie. So moving on today, we're going to talk about a key battle, the last major German offensive in the war. And like I said, I'll have a reading for you towards the end of class. And tomorrow I'll have a primary resource for the 101st Airborne, bringing them back up and their experience for this battle. All right, so Battle of Bulge. There you go. There we go. You guys write that down and we'll move on. So coming close to the end of the war, that means we will probably have an exam soon. Soon, soon, soon. All right, Battle of Bulge. What do we got here? What do we have? Shereen, what do you have for the Battle of Bulge?
Battle that's all Germans trying to break out of France, trying to recapture a place called the Rhine and move up to Antioch, the northernmost part of France.
Good.
So basically, in Belgium.
All right, good. So this is the last major offensive of the German army in World War II here on the Western Front. Okay, the Western Front. They thought, well, maybe this could save our ability to keep this Nazi party and Germany from totally surrendering, and maybe they can have an armistice with the Western powers, right? The Allied powers, and they can focus a lot of their attention on the Soviet Union in the East. Right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So with the Battle of Bulge, main thing again, like I said, is this is the last major offensive by the German army here on the Western Front. The Western Front mostly partook in the Ardennes Forest along the border of Germany, moving into Belgium. Okay, kind of northern France there, the Low Countries, and Germany thought if we could make a split into the Western powers, if we can split them up and try to cause a major offensive and split the Allied powers on the Western Front, maybe we could come to terms for an armistice. Maybe we could solve, maybe an armistice in the Western Front. Okay, then maybe a halt in fighting with Great Britain and the United States. If this could happen, then the German army could focus all their attention on the Soviet Union and maybe push them all the way back. Maybe they could, stop their advancements on the Eastern Front. We all know the Soviets were the main enemy by the Germans. Okay, they thought they could maybe hold off their advancements on the Eastern Front and maybe push them all the way back to keep Nazi Germany continuing in this war. Right? But this was the last-ditch effort of Germany to, again, reach an armistice, maybe come to terms with Great Britain and the United States on the Western Front. Okay, they thought they could reason with these two countries because they all know communism is going to be a huge threat moving forward. And let's face it, what happened after World War II? The Cold War, right? The Cold War and this fear of communism spreading throughout the world. So they thought, well, maybe we can reason with the United States and Great Britain if we have this last major offensive. Maybe we can stop the fighting here on the Western Front and focus our attention on the Soviets on the Eastern Front. That was their goal. That was their plan. Okay, and it was successful for a short bit of time. They actually pushed the Allied powers back pretty far on the Western Front. That's why they call it the Battle of the Bulge. When you look down on a map, the advancements of Germany in the Western Front, moving up into the Ardennes Forest, up close to Belgium, the Low Countries, they jutted pretty far. Okay, it looked like they were going to be successful with this planned, offensive. With that being said, the harsh temperature kind of halted the Allied powers. The United States, Great Britain, they just landed, right? They invaded onto Normandy Beach. They're moving into France, and the weather started to get a little bad. And they're moving through a heavily thick forest. Okay, so it was a little hard for the Allied powers to maneuver through this thick forest. Okay, at this time they're kind of regaining their supply lines. They're trying to fortify the supply lines and try to march and push the German army back into their main borders. And like I said, there was a lot of snow. It was pretty cold. It kind of halted the Allied advancement in Europe on the Western Front. And with that being said, if it's snowy, that means there's cloud coverage, right? So if there's cloud coverage, could the Allied powers utilize their Air Force? Not really. No, not really. But at the same time, could the Luftwaffe use their Air Force? No. Okay, so the Air Force was out of commission. Right? But the United States, Great Britain, they were heavily reliant on that. They needed this, especially to stop this strong advancement, this strong offensive by the German army. Germany thought, well, let's just take some resources. Let's take supplies, armaments, and these new types of tanks that were really built for destruction, these Tiger tanks, onto the Western Front. Okay, they thought they could maybe, again, try to break this stronghold, this advancement of Great Britain and the United States on the Western Front with really throwing everything they had at them. Okay, And if they came to terms with the U.S. and Great Britain, because the United States and Great Britain were fighting for a little bit of time here, with these two invasions, North Africa and southern Italy, and then now northern France, with the D-Day invasion, they thought, well, we're going to break their spirits here with this Battle of the Bulge, this last major offensive. And with the cloud coverage, that pushed the Allied powers that they couldn't really use their air force. And with some Germans dressing up and trying to disguise themselves as U.S. soldiers, Great Britain soldiers, they're going around and changing the signs and the destination in Europe. It was kind of interesting how they did that. So they disguised themselves in U.S. uniform and went around and changed the signs over so that they could maybe divert the U.S. and Great Britain moving in the right direction, which actually kind of worked for a bit of time. So that being said, like I said, Germany threw everything they had. And this battle was really impactful because this was the last major offensive. Germany was pushing back the United States and Great Britain on the Western Front. But eventually, we all know the cloud cover would dissipate. We all know that Germany was low on supplies, especially gasoline, oil, fuel for these tanks, these huge, these new forms of tanks. So once that kind of ran out, then Great Britain and the United States kind of gathered themselves back up, utilized the Air Force, and pushed back the German army. Yeah, they had these new advanced Tiger tanks, but without any fuel, how helpful can they be on the battlefield? Griffin? And they're kind of just sitting targets. But with the 101st Airborne, with the assignment I'll have for tomorrow, they were actually stranded. They were kind of encircled at Bastogne, which is a city, which is like a town here, close to the Ardennes. And they're running low on supplies, running low on resources, and they actually held their own against the advancing German army during the Battle of the Bulge. Eventually, like I said, once the cloud coverage moved out and Patton came to the rescue, they pushed the German army out. And the 101st Airborne actually has a really important story here at Bastogne, which you'll read about tomorrow. Which I'll talk a little bit about tomorrow. And it's an actual letter. It's kind of right around Christmas time, and how these soldiers were dealing with their Christmas in Bastogne. Obviously not ideal, right? But the temperatures were really low, around 10 degrees, maybe even below that. There is around 9 inches of snow. Again, hard to maneuver in those types of conditions for both sides. But Germany was prepared for this offensive. And like I said, in a short amount of time, the United States, Great Britain pushed back this major offensive. And this would be it. This would be the last hurrah, I guess you could say, for the German army in this war. From here on out, it's just them getting pushed back to their borders, and that was their last major offensive. So again, the main thing to get from this Battle of the Bulge, the weather conditions kind of put out the Allied powers, Air Force, they couldn't really utilize it there. The advancements in the German army, but it was for them, it was unfortunate because they ran out of fuel and it kind of hold them in their tracks. And with that being said, it was kind of short-lived, this major offensive in the western side. Their goal was to try to split up the Allied powers movement and split their forces to try to create an armistice so that they could focus all their attention on the Soviet Union, but that didn't work. Great Britain and America dug in, waited for the cloud covers, and the Allied powers used their air force to push back that German offensive. And that was the Battle of Bulge. The Battle of Bulge. Again, that gives the name because when you look at the map, that's exactly what it looks like. The German army pushing, it was like a triangular bulge on a map of how far they pushed the German army, or pushed the Allied powers back in the Ardennes forest. All right, is there any questions on that? The Battle of Bulge. You guys good? All right, so real quick, here is the assignment for today. It's just a short reading on the Battle of the Bulge. It talks about the 101st Airborne a bit. I'd like you have that done for tomorrow. So here's the reading. Oh, sorry, here's the reading. And here's the questions for it. So try to have that finished up for, for tomorrow. I do have a podcast on the Battle of Bulge. Should I put it out? Maybe tomorrow you can listen to it. It's a good one. It's a good one. It gets exciting.